Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Stotara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Gauri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shlahadadas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 21, Text 26. Now, Text 26 doesn't have a purport, so I'll just chant the Sanskrit myself and read the translation, and then we'll do 27 together. Okay? Sache Havipra Rajarshir Mahisya Satarupaya Ayasyati Didrikshushtvam Parashvo Dharmako Vidaha. Translation. This is Lord Vishnu speaking. The day after tomorrow, O Brahmana, that celebrated emperor, who is expert in religious activities, will come here with his queen, Satarupa, wishing to see you. Okay. Text 27. Atmajam asita pangem. Atmajam asita pangem. Vaya shila gunan vitam. Vaya shila gunan vitam. Mrgayantim patim dasyat. Mrgayantim patim dashyati. Anarupayate Prabhu. Anarupayate Prabhu. Atmajam asita pangim. Vaya shila gunan vitam. Mrgayantim patim dashyati. Anarupayate Prabhu. Others? Atmajam asita pangim. Vaishnavis. Okay. Atmajam, his own daughter. Asita, black. Apangrim, Apangim, eyes. Vayaha, grown-up age. Shila, with character. Guna, with good qualities. Anvitam, endowed. Mrgayantim, searching for. Patim, a husband. Dashyati, he will give. Anurupaya, who are suitable. Te, unto you. Prabhu, my dear sir. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. This is, once again, Lord Vishnu speaking. He has a grown-up daughter whose eyes are black. She is ready for marriage, and she has good character and all good qualities. She is also searching for a good husband. My dear sir, her parents will come to see you, my dear sir, her parents will come to see you who are exactly suitable for her, just to deliver their daughter as your wife. Purport. The selection of a good husband for a good girl is always entrusted to the parents. Here it is clearly stated that Manu and his wife were coming to see Kardama Muni to offer their daughter because the daughter was well qualified and the parents were searching out a similarly qualified man. This is the duty of the parents. Girls are never thrown into the public street to search out their husband. But when girls are grown up and are searching after a boy, they forget to consider whether the boy they select is actually suitable for them. Out of the urge of sex desire, a girl may accept anyone. But if the husband is chosen by the parents, they can consider who is to be selected and who is not. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the girl is given over to a suitable boy by the parents. She is never allowed to select her own husband independently. Om Agana Tamiram Dasya Janam Jana Shalakaya Shakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupagaramayam Dadapti Swapadantikam. So Lord Vishnu is here and he's responding to prayers that were offered by Kardama Muni. And, Kardama Muni, he made a lot of statements glorifying Lord Vishnu. That's the process, but basically he was asking for a wife. And that's back in text translation number 15. he states, he says, desiring to marry a girl of like disposition, who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life, to satisfy my lustful desire, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything, for you are like a desire tree. So he's asking here to marry a girl of like disposition who can help him in his married life. And basically, Lord Vishnu here is saying in so many words, I got you. Familiar with that expression? It's become a very popular expression in the last 5 years. You know, when anybody, if you ask somebody for a donation, they go, I got you. I never used to hear it, but it's just things pop up like that in the language every now and then. So yeah, Lord Vishnu is saying that. He's basically telling me, yeah, don't worry, I know what you're after, and I already made an arrangement. And so that's good, very fortunate for Kardama Muni. You know, he doesn't have to be at all on the mental platform here, because Lord Vishnu himself is telling him, hey, you're all taken care of. This girl is, you know, she's got good character. What else? She's got good qualities. She's coming from a good family. She's desiring to get married. Actually, she wants to marry you, and she's perfect for you, and you'll be perfect for her. So he can be just totally have his mind rest in peace. Okay, I'll go forward with this. I don't have to have any reservations of any kind. So in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how the selection of a good husband for a girl is entrusted to the parents, and that it shouldn't be done by the girl herself, or the boy for that matter. And the reason is, Prabhupada says, well, he's specifically talking about the girls here. Girls are never thrown into the public street to search out their husband. What a graphic example, thrown into the street, for when girls are grown up and are searching after a boy, they forget to consider whether the boy they select is actually suitable for them. So they forget in this sense. I'm going to try to give an analogy to help us understand what Prabhupada means here by they forget. This would be about 40 years ago now. I was in Australia, and I was on the marathon, the Prabhupada Marathon. And back in Australia, the seasons are reversed. Like, you know, in December, here it's winter for us, but in Australia, December is summer. So it's very hot. You know, it was like equivalent of 100 degrees Fahrenheit pretty much every day. So I was traveling with one other devotee, and we were selling paintings. That's what we were doing at the time. It was, marathon was done with paraphernalia. And so it was, it was a hot day, carrying this big roll of paintings around. It's heavy. We're working hard. So we're driving from one place to another. My Sankirtan partner goes to me and says, I'm really thirsty. And I said, well, just hang on, we'll another 10, 15 minutes, we'll be at our spot there, and you can, He said, no, I got to have something. I'm really thirsty. We didn't have any water in the car or anything like that. I said, well, we're just kind of like, there's no supermarket around here. Just hang in there. He says, no, I'm really thirsty. He was insisting. So I said, well, there's a I think it was a Walgreens, or the equivalent of a Walgreens in Australia. He said, well, there's a Walgreens there. I'll pull over there. Maybe you can get something there. So we pull into the parking lot, and he goes in there, and when he comes out a couple minutes later, he's having like not a quart, one of those cardboard containers, but not a quart. It looked like about 600 milliliters, okay? So he's got that, and he opens it up, and he had a picture, we had a picture of Prabhupada on the dashboard, and he goes, no, and he, mumbles some mantra really quickly, and he goes like that, starts to drink it. And then he goes like that, and then he stops, and he looks at it, and then he goes, and he keeps drinking it, and he drinks the rest of it. He thought it was orange juice. It was orange juice concentrate. But the thing was, he was so thirsty, he was so affected by the fact that I'm thirsty, I got to satisfy my thirst, that despite the fact that, even after he started drinking it, and he could understand that, oh, wait a second, this isn't orange juice, it's the concentrate. And he as I said, he stopped, they looked at it for a second, and he said, what the heck? And he drank the rest of it, and he had a really bad stomachache for some hours after that. But that's the point. See, he was just so overwhelmed by the thirst that he couldn't think straight. You see? So it's the same thing, you know. It's not like the girl or the boy forgets to consider that, you know, some consideration is there in the mind, but it's overwhelmed by the desire, you know, the urge to fulfill that material desire. Just like I heard in one lecture, Prabhupada explained that the fish, you know, they actually know that they see the worm on the hook, and they see the hook. It's not like they don't see they're not totally fooled. It's not like the fish just, you know, see the worm and they just go, no, they know it's a hook, but they're so lusty. I heard Prabhupada say this in a lecture. They're so lusty that despite the fact that they know that the hook is there, they just go, and they go for the bait and they get the hook. You see? So it's kind of like that. And that's why, that's why the boy or the girl, you know, is not supposed to select their own partner, because they're too much influenced by the urge to satisfy that material desire. Another example that I'm pretty sure I heard Prabhupada give in a lecture is that doctors, if a doctor gets sick, okay, he doesn't, they don't treat themselves. If a doctor's sick, or if his wife's sick, or if his children are sick, it's not recommended, and it's not the standard practice, right? They don't treat themselves. They go to another doctor. You see why? Because they know, I can't be objective. This is me, or it's my wife, it's my children. I'm not going to be able to be objective about this. So better I just go to another doctor. And that's what they do. So it's like that. When you're too much influenced by the emotions or the desires, the urges, you can't be objective about the whole thing. That's what Prabhupada means here, but that they forget to consider whether the boy they select is actually suitable for them. And, you know, as I said, vice versa. They forget to consider whether the girl they select is actually suitable for them, because they're overwhelmed, too much influenced by these, you know, the emotions and the attraction and so forth and so on. So that doesn't work. So Prabhupada says, in the Vedic system, therefore, the girl is given over to a suitable boy by the parents. She is never allowed to select her own husband independently. And he makes the point that the parents, the selection of the good husband for a boy and a girl is always entrusted to the parents. Now, so, okay, does that mean that the boy and the girl, they shouldn't be making the selection, but the parents should make the selection, and everything's going to be fine, if that's the case, right? Well, yes and no. You got to really kind of read and listen carefully to what Prabhupada's saying. He says, according to the Vedic system, and see, the parents have to be in the Vedic system. If there's just any old parents, what qualifications do they have for making the right selection? Follow what I'm saying? Okay, the boy and the girl, they're going to select on the basis of, you know, who looks good and who's nice and who seems interested in them. So that won't work, you know, because in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, Krishna explains that happiness in the mode of passion, it's like nectar to start off with, and then it turns to poison. So that's a perfect example of that. If your selection, you know, the basis of your selection is just physical attraction and like that, then that's the mode of passion. It's going to be like nectar to start off with, but then turn to poison. So that doesn't work. But the parents, if they're not Krishna conscious, they will be selecting on the criteria, on the basis of sense gratification as well. It won't be the same sense gratification as the boy and the girl. I'll give you an example, okay, what I'm talking about. Back about, once again, almost 30 years ago, I was in London. And I was at the temple in Soho Street, down, you know, the one downtown. And there was a couple of men that used to come all the time to the temple, almost every day, pretty much. They were very wealthy. They were Indian businessmen. They were a very, very wealthy family. Induja, you might have heard the name. Heard it? Archie Savas probably knows the Indujas. Okay. Prabhu is shaking, Ramakrishna is shaking his head. He's heard of them. Very wealthy family. And they had a son. And this son, he wanted to get married to this particular girl. And I can't, you know, it's so long ago, it's hard for me to remember really accurately the details, but I think she definitely wasn't who their parents wanted him to marry. I think she was actually outside the religion as well. She was the Muslim faith, like that. But they definitely didn't want him to marry her. And they were forbidding it. Anyway, He committed suicide. Yeah, he committed suicide. Then they really regretted it. But you see, the thing was, because his consideration was, I like this girl. I want to marry her, and she likes me. And their consideration was, no, not the right family, not the right culture, no. But their consideration wasn't that, no, this girl's not going to be able to help you in your Krishna consciousness. She's not going to be able to help you, in your progressive march back to Godhead. That wasn't their consideration. Their consideration was, well, no, it's not the right family connection. It's not the subtle sense gratification, you see? So that didn't work either. So the thing is, the parents, as Prabhupada indirectly says here, according to the Vedic system, they have to be educated. The parents have to know on what's the criteria for selecting a boy selecting a boy for their daughter. And that criteria, Prabhupada describes that nicely in a lecture he gave. I'm going to read you an excerpt from a lecture that Prabhupada gave way back in 1966. Okay? Prabhupada says, Bharya means wife. Wife is accepted simply for begetting sons. Okay? But goes on. Therefore it is called, or she is called, Dharma Patni. Dharma Patni, religious partner, okay? A son is required. Why one should accept the wife for begetting son? Putra Pinda Prayojanam. According to Vedic Dharma, the Pinda Dan, offering Pinda, oblations to the forefather. I'm reading it exactly as Prabhupada said it. Putra is Pun Namno Narakad Yasmat Trayate Iti Putra. Well, and then he says, who is Putra? Okay. There is Naraka, hell. And if somebody by his sinful action is sent to that hell, that Putra, or that son that comes out as a result of that religious combination, will perform what's that ceremony called again? Shraddha ceremony, the son, the good son, will perform the Shraddha ceremony and offer Pinda, as we just heard, and by doing that will deliver that person. He goes on, Pun namno narakad yasmat trayate. Prabhupada says, he's making the point, the word putra is a combination of two words, pun, which is hell, and trayate, which means to deliver. So the two words together means the person who will deliver you from hell. That's putra, the person who will deliver you from hell. So Prabhupada says, putra means who can deliver the forefather, if by chance he has fallen in the hellish condition. Therefore, putra pinda prayojanam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also showed us the example. He went to Gaya, Pradesh, to offer Pinda for his forefathers. This is necessary still. So Prabhupada's confirming that, this is a for real practice. It's potent, this is necessary still. In Gaya, there is a Vishnu temple, and in the Vishnu temple, the oblation is offered at the lotus feet of Vishnu. There are many practical cases of one's father or mother becoming a ghost after death. And after oblations, offering oblations at the lotus feet of Vishnu at Gaya, they were delivered. Prabhupada says, there are many cases. So that's the idea. In the Vedic culture, people are thinking about not sense gratification. They're thinking about how to get out of this cycle of birth and death and go back to Godhead. See, that's the purpose behind everything. Everything, not how am I going to maximize the quality and the quantity of my sense gratification here in this material world. No. How am I going to make some progress towards getting out of this cycle of birth and death and going back to Godhead? And marriage is part of that. Marriage is like a means to that end. It's why it's called an ashram, grihastha ashram, which means a spiritual shelter. You see? So that's the real thing that, for sure, the choice shouldn't be left up to the boy and the girl who aren't at all, educated, or even if they are a bit educated, they're young. That's kind of like when you're 13, 14, 15, or for a girl, or 20, 21, 24, you're kind of still, you're overwhelmed. The desires, the passions are so strong, it's hard. Despite the fact you might know the philosophy, it's difficult to kind of be very, exercise good judgment and discrimination. So the parents, but the parents have to be educated too. The parents can't just be karmis. If the parents are karmis, they're not going to do necessarily any better than their kids in terms of, selecting the proper boy or girl. So the most important thing is that who's ever doing it, if it's parents or, actually I'm going to get into this in a second, authorities, temple authorities, they have to be educated. They have to know what the real, purpose of the whole thing is, and help try to arrange something that's going to be beneficial for both people's spiritual life. That's the real important thing. Marriage is something to help you progress in spiritual life. It's not meant, there is sense gratification there, no doubt, but the real purpose of it is to help you progress in spiritual life. It's a concession. So concession means, okay, yeah, there's some sense gratification for sure. It's there, but that's not the real purpose. The ultimate purpose is to advance the spiritual life. So, yeah, it's a very, so it's a serious responsibility. It's a serious responsibility. And that's stated in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Whoops. I apologize that I don't know this verse by memory. I certainly should, but anyway, I don't. Not well enough that I won't mess it up, so I'm going to just read it. Guror nas sasyat, swajano nasasyat, pita nasasyaj, janani nasasyat. Daivam natasyan, napatis chasayasyan, namocha yadya samupecha mrityum. This is Lord Rishabhdev speaking to his sons. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, father, husband, mother, or worshipable demigod. See, so in other words, it's a big, it's a serious responsibility. When you if you're a parent, you have the responsibility to do everything you possibly can, make whatever arrangement you can to help as much as you possibly can your children make progress in spiritual life, so that's their last birth in the material world. That their birth as your child is the last birth in the spiritual world. Now, so how does this apply to us in ISKCON? Because here we are, so many boys and girls have come to this movement, and parents are out there someplace. Generally, they're not particularly favorable. They're just mostly tolerant at best, so they're not involved. And even if they were willing to get involved, what do they know? They don't know anything. They don't know that, how to select a boy or a girl for their son or daughter to help them make progress in spiritual life. They wouldn't have a clue how to do it. So they're kind of useless for that purpose, really. So what happens? We got all these young men, young women in the Krishna conscious movement. How? Well, I did some research on it last night, and I don't know how authoritative it is, but I did find something by a godbrother of ours. His name was Amiyatma Das. I'm familiar with the name. I don't know him personally, but I remember the name. Anyway, he wrote something, and he was saying that Prabhupada did delegate that responsibility to ISKCON leaders, to help. Like a temple president or a GBC or a guru, they're supposed to help in that regard. Help the girl or the boy or like that. Young people want to get married within ISKCON, these temple authorities are supposed to help. And so they're like the surrogate parents, replacement parents, because parents don't, they're not there, and even if they were, as I said, they wouldn't know what to do anyway. So the temple authorities have a big responsibility in that regard. So the thing is, though, they have to be educated. They really have to know what they're doing, because this is like serious business. Kind of like guiding somebody towards getting into a particular. That's like a lot of repercussions there. It's very you could really mess up somebody's life if you don't know what you're doing. Unfortunately, that happened in ISKCON to a certain extent. There was a lot of haphazard kind of marriages, people thrown together and all that. But anyway, that's hopefully totally something of the past. And as time has gone on, I believe that we've matured and grown spiritually as a society, and now everybody, people who are in the positions of authority, they understand the seriousness of that, and they're really careful about how they go about dealing with that situation, because it's a big thing. Now, having said that, offering that vote of confidence to our contemporary leaders. At the same time, devotees are not necessarily infallible. Devotees are human, and they make mistakes. Like, for instance, okay, I'll use myself. I'm the Sankirtan leader. So say I might send somebody, it's a couple devotees on traveling Sankirtan, and tell them, okay, go to this school and that school and that school. And thinking that, oh yeah, I know, those are good schools, but I might not have taken into consideration, oh wait, it's too early. That school's going to be on the winter intercession. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Generally back in the old days you had the fall semester and the spring semester. That's it, and summer vacation. Now they got fall semester, and you got what's called a winter intercession, and then they got summer sessions, and there's all different kind of little sessions in between, aside from the fall session and the spring session. So generally they're not very busy. They're useless almost, as far as, for our purposes of distributing books, because there's hardly any students. The classes are very long. They're not like 45 minutes, an hour long. They're 2.5 hours long. You hardly see any students. So I might, by mistake, send some devotees to those schools. Now, they got to be intelligent, and they got to, it's not like it's, the authority says, well, Bhrgupati said do these schools, so we got to stay here all day and do it, even though it's useless. No. They got to use their brains, They got to bring me up and say, Prabhu, you sent us to the school, but there's nobody here. What do you mean? I mean, it's like, well, it's the winter intercession. I say, oh, I'm sorry. And I make mistakes. Leaders make mistakes, you see? So another aspect of it is, so the leaders have to try to do their best to be educated and, really qualified and really try hard to help the boy or the girl get nicely situated, because it's a really important thing. And the individuals also have to try to do as much as they can to make sure it works as well. Prabhupada said, self-preservation is the first law of nature. So, that doesn't mean not being independent. It just means you kind of work with your authorities, and at the same time, you can be kind of like, not challenging, but submissively present your concerns. Prabhu, you're suggesting I marry this person or that person. Why do you think that's, just out of curiosity, why would you say that's the best selection? Submissively, be involved. Don't just be like a robot or, okay, yes, sir, no, sir, no. No, you got to be involved. You got to help your own cause kind of thing. So that's there too. So that's as much as I have to say on the subject. I hope I said a few things worth listening to. Anybody have any question or comment? So Vaspu, you want to say something in defense here? Or? If I said something that you don't agree with, that you thought was inaccurate, please let me know. Because I try to, tell you what I think is, size it up, according to my understanding.
I think you did a good job. But I think that, there's different kinds of situations too, because if you're going to be married to a devotee girl or a devotee boy, if you're going to live in a temple, you have to develop Brahminical qualities. Otherwise, it's very difficult to maintain a relationship. So sometimes, that's very difficult. That's something that maybe a lot of devotees that want to get married are not really capable of doing. Staying in the temple, living a very simple life, depending on the temple, doing service for the temple together. I think this is the challenge. In the early days, we didn't think about that too much. We just had devotees, okay, if you want to marry, fine. But then after due course of time, it just didn't work. One or the other didn't really want to be living in the temple, under the shelter of the temple. And then they created all these kinds of difficulties. So, parents these days, they're taking their children and they're not necessarily getting them to be like full-time devotees in terms of a temple. They're just trying to develop a good relationship with a husband and wife, and they can go through their particular lifestyle. But what's really important is that they also have Krishna in their life. And then maybe at a certain time in their life, they can take that next step of real vanapras and then go on and maybe sannyas or whatever, however that is. So I think that that's the real challenge. I would say as an administrator in a temple, if somebody was walking up to me and wanted me to, authorize or help them in their marriage, that would be the questions that I would ask. Are you interested in maintaining, under the support of the temple? And maybe sometimes the temple can't even do that.
Right.
Maybe the temple can't even afford that. So maybe they'll just say, well, maybe you need to, figure out how and what you're going to do to maintain your life. So I think there's these questions that always come up, and depending on the individuals, how that actually happens. But to say that even in my particular life, I have a son. He's not really practicing Krishna consciousness, in a temple situation. But, he believes in Krishna. Krishna is his God, and he loves Krishna, and he's trying to do the best he can to become closer to Krishna. But it's not necessarily what you would call the Vedic system of relationship and marriage. So but of course, at least maybe they have an opportunity in their next life or whatever to, continue on their Krishna consciousness and become devotees. So I think that's the challenge for administrator. It's a very difficult thing to, I know that when I was married with Tadit, that we didn't even know each other. We practically didn't even, I had no understanding who she was and where she came from. Mm-hmm. But the temple president pulled us into in the room and said, we think you two need to be married. So we both agreed. And so here we are, still staying in the temple and doing service. So it can work. You can do it if you really want to. So I would say that's a point of understanding between the couple. Because in the course of our marriage, sometimes it came up, well, do you want to go out and do this? So many offers come, can you do this? And each time that situation arose, we said no. We'd rather live in the temple and take shelter of the temple and work with the temple. So it really comes down to the individuals and their commitment and their strength in Krishna consciousness and what they want to accomplish. So I know I'm not answering any questions. I'm just
it's good.
Trying to give a synopsis and a situation. And when that happens to a brahmachari or a brahmacharini, these are the questions they should ask. Does this boy or does this girl, do they want to live in the temple and take shelter of the temple and do service?
Yeah. If so, you have to be prepared to live simple living, high thinking.
Yeah, you have to be.
And if not, then you got to be prepared to maintain yourself somehow.
Then you got to learn how you're going to maintain your lifestyle.
Yeah. Rajita. Seem to.
Hare Krishna, very nice presentation, to the point. There's a very famous purport, 6226. Everybody can read it for themselves, but the bottom line of that purport is Prabhupada mentions in the purport about astrology. That's important for matching, because if the match is not proper, there will be problems in the marriage. But I'll just read the conclusion at the end. Of course, this is Trigunya, a material calculation according to the Vedas. But if the boy and girl are devotees, there need be no such considerations. A devotee is transcendental, and therefore in a marriage between devotees, the boy and girl form a very happy combination. So yes, all these other considerations you're talking about, parents qualified, this, that. But ultimately, the boy and girl have to be devotees if they want to be happy. And you also have to accept authority. Accepting authority doesn't mean that the authority tells you something and then you second guess and do what you want to do. Then you don't have an authority. And the famous case is Prabhupada's own case. His parents arranged a marriage with a girl. He didn't like her, so he wanted to marry someone else, because in those days he could marry a second wife. But his father said no. And because he accepted his father's authority, even though he wanted to get another wife, he didn't. So somewhere along the line, you have to accept an authority and do what they tell you to do. Otherwise, you don't have an authority. If you always wind up doing what you want to do, then you're your own authority. And it's just a show. Because like you said, the real goal is to go back to Godhead, not necessarily be happy here. So Prabhupada wasn't necessarily happy with that girl, but because his father told him, stay with her, it'll be easier for you later on to get out and do what you need to do, which was, we know, come to the West and preach. Then he followed his authority, and he stayed in that not so happy marriage. Because the bottom line is not about being happy in marriage, because even if it's happy, like Kardama Muni and Devahuti, they will be happy. But at some point, for spiritual consideration, Kardama Muni left. He was ready to go after they had 9 daughters. But she said, no, I'm not. I need shelter spiritually, so he gave her a son, and then he left. It's not that he stayed there because they had a happy life and big house and all amenities. No, he left. So the spiritual consideration has to be there, and that means accepting an authority. You must have an authority to make spiritual progress.
Thank you. Yeah, both really good comments. Thank you. Anybody else like to say anything? Sachin? Okay.
There is one saying that, I don't know if it's used in India, maybe it comes from India, where they say you don't marry the one you love, but you learn to love the one you're going to get married.
Yeah.
Is that the way it goes?
Yeah, basically that's it.
So,
it's a sense of duty. It's duty is what's being emphasized
Exactly.
there, not like attraction. You don't
Exactly.
marry the one you love, but out of duty you marry, who you
because
arrange to marry,
it appears
and then you
that
learn to love that person.
Exactly. Most of our selections is about how I feel, about feelings and emotions and all these things. And we're dealing here with Satya Yuga, with Kardama Muni, again. The whole culture, the whole structures is set up in such a way that the girl, you never heard the girl speak, or the Bhuti never say anything in the whole time. It was just Lord Krishna, Kardama Muni, Krishna speaking to Kardama Muni, then Swayambhuva Manu. She never spoke, even in the Bhagavatam. She was just like, here it is. Everything was perfectly done because the education was there. In Kali Yuga, we don't have that. We're doing, what do you say, we use the best of the bad bargain?
But make the best use of a bad bargain.
The best use of a bad bargain. And in the times when Srila Prabhupada came at the beginning, he was criticized by some of his peers about why Prabhupada was like these girls and boys getting together, and then Prabhupada says they don't understand that this is a different culture, different way of dealings, So little by little, the girls were introduced to Krishna consciousness. We don't have that in India. In India, the girls don't join the movement. We don't see that they join the ashrams. Mostly it's like men, right? Mostly. Am I wrong? It's mostly, this is in the West that we have young girls coming to a temple and they want to go into the Bhakti ashram. Yeah. So we have a different, like Suvas explained, it's a whole different challenge for the administrators to do. But it's still, we have to, I guess, the administrators figure out how to help the devotees in the best we can, or senior devotees give the best advice. So thank you very much. That was a very good presentation. I like it.
Thank you. Okay, going throughout Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.